At She Can, we tell women's stories. We show how women got to where they are today to inspire, mentor, and motivate others. And today that's particularly relevant because I would love to welcome Alice Bromage. Alice, you're the founder and CEO of Empowering Success, which we can see in your background, and also of Hawksley International. You have decades of experience in leading world-class teams in business and in government. You're a former British Army officer, lifetime adventurist, serial entrepreneur, and you've supported special forces on multiple occasions. You worked with the International Criminal Court, helped nation states develop their leadership across sectors of government, and you're a really seasoned coach, building resilience, clarity, productivity, profitability with partners and clients. We are really excited to have you here today to listen to your story. So tell us a bit more about yourself and what you do now and all the many hats that you wear.
Well, so I guess thank you for the lovely introduction. That was incredibly kind. I yeah, so I guess I joined the army age 17. I got recruited straight out of school, and I then went back to university, did a degree in rural resource management, and went back to Sandhurst again to then start a full-time career, which I spent, yeah, literally up until 2016. So where am I now? I am running a resilience leadership company in that I work with some phenomenal people when I was serving the forces, and I worked with some atrocious people. And I know that when you're working with someone that you find inspiring, that you trust, that you find motivating, then you get great energy, you become more productive, you can see round corners, you're able to do many different things because you're willing to take a risk, and you're willing to take a risk because you think they'll appreciate it and you think it's worth it. So I guess I came back from my last tour of Afghanistan in 2014, and I just found that a lot of my peer group in London, in large big jobs, be it in New York, etc. as well, were just not happy. And I didn't really understand why. And there didn't seem to be a correlation between those who I knew had been straight A students, Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, etc., and those who were doing really well. There didn't seem to be a correlation. And so I used the experience I've developed in the army of developing teams, like I say, working with some other phenomenal individuals, and just using that to then start coaching some of my peers, helping them understand, well, are they making best use of what they have? And similarly, what is maybe holding them back? Because if you've got this natural acumen that in this normal scholastic system has proven that you have the intellectual capability, then that would infer when others are doing better than you in other aspects of career and business development, that there's an X factor that you're missing. It's not all about scholastic acumen.
Hmm.
And ironically, often those that have been through what we call the school of hard knocks life are then the ones that sometimes do really well at things like entrepreneurship and business, because they're used to falling over, getting up, falling over, getting up, falling over and getting up again, and just not letting anybody get in their way. And so those are two quite different mindsets as you arrive.
Yeah.
And I guess what I love now is trying to help people find their own path so that you can work out, what are the things that I love doing? What are the things I'm really good at doing? What are the areas I can now offer real value into? Because on the premise, everybody wants a win-win. So if you're enjoying what you're doing, then you will be more productive. Often that means that you will therefore be bringing a kind of X factor to your role. And then that'll in time bring productivity with it and profitability with it. Because people pay for value, and they pay for when they feel you can offer something that no one else can. And that's the part I love, I guess, is helping people find their X factor and knowing that you have one, and then feeling really brave about using it. Because obviously one of the parts of growing up through life is that you will have had some people that love what you do. You'll probably have some people who've given you a hard time about what you do, how you are, who you've been. And it's just working out that that's part of life. But how do we focus on where we want to go not where have we necessarily been. So it's working out that forward-leaning journey. So you're always focused on, where do I want to go to? Where am I now? Where do I want to go to? Which bits of my story, so to speak, serve me well, and they give me strength and they give me energy and they make me want to go forward? Which parts of my story might possibly actually drag me down, pull me back, be anchors in a bad way, holding you from moving forward? So we help people release the anchors so they can accelerate forward. And that's what I
Yeah,
love doing, I guess.
that's a beautiful picture in my mind just now. Alice, you've been in a very male-dominated field, the army, for a very long time. Tell us a little bit more about that. And there must have been so many challenges. And so, how did you persevere? And how did you, and how, what influence does that have on your life now?
So I guess it's the classic of, you don't know what you don't know. So I joined the army at 17. I went, straight into a unit where I was the youngest there. I became a young junior officer, age 17. I had my 18th birthday whilst serving. So, from that aspect, you don't know any different. So I never saw the way I have never felt that I was being treated differently because I was female. I just thought it's because you're young and inexperienced, which I think is probably true too.
Yeah,
Um, However, I also appreciate that I come from a very, I probably come from quite an unusual family. I've had others. Basically, both of my grandfathers married twice. And so, for better or for worse, that meant that I had two grandfathers and three grannies, because one of them had already died, unfortunately, before I was born. And they were really strong women. So actually, I came from a background where, they had been living and working abroad, and ran businesses in their own right. And we're all living to, my one of my grannies lived to 103, the other one lived to 98. You don't get that old by being meek and mild. You get that old from having real grit and determination. So I've always been brought up around women who essentially were, one grandmother was a farmer, the other one built her own property kind of portfolio to be able to earn money from, whilst all growing their own vegetables, brewing their own beer, bringing up their children as single mothers, um, through the war. For my mum was born in 1940, so literally Second World War. My granny was divorced and with two young children, just unheard of in that era.
absolutely.
And yeah, and I guess same for my father, was one of seven, and essentially his mother helped bring him and my uncles up pretty much solo for quite a lot of that. And she was a hugely strong lady. And so I was very fortunate in that I came from the expectation of skills first. Gender wasn't really discussed. And my parents both ran a business together. There was never a discussion of the idea that one had primacy over the other. All I grew up with as a child was two fully working parents and being looked after by male babysitters. One was a gardener, and a female babysitter, and she was a cleaner and a helper. And so, because they ran a hotel, so any of the staff that had the capacity to absorb a small person, to be with them through the day, they became my carers, not because I was sat at home, eating sweets and watching TV. I was out in the hotel with all the staff. So that ability to learn to, I cleaned when I was small because that would give me pocket money. I sold sweeties. I'd help my granny make, kind of lavender dolls to sell on the side of the street to earn pocket money. And I loved that freedom because I didn't know any different. So, it wasn't child labor by any stretch of the imagination. I was loving it. You got to meet loads of people. And so everyone was kind. You're working hard, you see your parents working hard. So, you're integrated in supporting the family business. And I loved it.
Yeah.
So I guess naturally, is by the time I hit the army, I'd not had any form of gender I wouldn't say, I'd say the only gender delineation was the fact I couldn't go and be a bomb disposal engineer diver because they wouldn't take women. But
Okay.
actually, I didn't really mind. I still got to trial for it. I still got to put on the big suit and realize how heavy it was. And then I still got to jump in the big murky water and have a go. But I wasn't doing an engineering degree. So again, when they then said, well, but you need to be doing an engineering degree to be the bomb disposal expert, I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing an engineering degree. That doesn't seem that unreasonable. And they said, oh, and by the way, we don't have women either. And I was like, well, I'm not doing the engineering degree. So irrespective of gender, I couldn't have gone to do it. So that part, and also I was, I'm 5'8", maybe 5'7.5" now. I've shrunk a little bit over time, but I was fully grown age 12. So also I've always physically been strong. I was born and brought up on Dartmoor. So when we're talking about how has gender aligned, I guess interestingly for me, anyways, I've never really felt this a gender discussion until I've become a civilian. So
Mhm.
actually the appreciation of being different because of gender has only become since I've left the military. When I was serving, it was very skills based. You're paid the same. So when you're at any rank, you're paid the same. So it's all about, have you hit the rank? If you've got a skill or a discipline, you're paid by discipline. So have you got the acumen to go and do the discipline? Have you been chosen to go there? I spent a lot of time deployed, and you only get deployed if they think you can cope with a deployment. So I spent, yeah, a significant chunk of all of my adult life has always been on deployment. And then you have to be on form. So you're picked because somebody wants you to be in their team to be in Afghanistan. They want you to be part of their team in Iraq. They want you to be part of their team in West Africa or wherever it is you're going. So you're arriving and nobody's got the chance really. What does that mean? It means I get a shower on the end. Well, that's okay. People are very polite. You go into places and sometimes it'd just be a little piece of paper that you'd have a sticky bit on the top that would say, female inside or don't come in. And actually the boys sometimes would still come in if you're all in a hurry, but I'd always have the shower at the end. So the embarrassment was not for me because I'd be walking out past all of them. So they were always very respectful. They'd leave you in the end, but I just knew I'd go early. I would make sure that I'd know when they're all in dinner, so you just work around it I just felt lucky that I was able to have a shower in the middle of, Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever else where many people don't even have the running water and that facility. So yeah, I think it's interesting if you walk in to an arena where it's all about what's in here, and I mean mind as well as mindset, then I think it's much easier to navigate because then you're into the power struggle of understanding the absorption. Can you absorb quick enough? Can you process quick enough?
Mhm.
Are you able to have a quick enough response to the person that's in front of you that has already got another 10, 15 years because of just the roles I used to have, which were very much doing analytics and support work? The people you were serving were often far more experienced than you. So again, I never saw that through a gender lens. I saw
Mhm.
that through oh my goodness, how do I keep up lens? So you're
I
out in an operational theatre where it's just go, 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 go for 6, 7, 8, 9 months, and you just have to keep up. Yeah, so yeah,
Yeah,
that's
no,
the
I
main
hear you,
focus.
Alice, and I think it's so interesting because I really would have never expected that. And I don't think many people would have expected this answer, apart from maybe people who are actually in the army and who know that. And I love it, and I'm wondering, what is your main motivator going forwards with all this experience where that was just never an issue?
Well, I think what I would love to share is that thought. So you asked before, as far as when I've come out into, this whole new world, so to speak. So I left the army in 2016, and so I've been out seven years now. Is that often I think the narrative we create is filled with fear. Be that in the press, be that through exposés. So I am very fortunate in that, if somebody's walked up to me and tried to be inappropriate, I have a very strong right hook that I know I can really use if required. I've only had to use that once, and actually it was in a ski resort. It was nowhere near work. And luckily I got away. But so I absolutely appreciate the trauma that people can go through when they have had assaults or people around them. I was just very, very fortunate too that often I was the boss. So in which case you're not being assaulted if you're the boss.
Absolutely.
And that helps without question, because then you set the culture.
Yeah.
So I guess, where do I want to go now? I want people to work in arenas that they love, to be in businesses that are thriving, to have the fear of not achieving everything that they want to in life in comparison to, will I be able to cope with tomorrow? Those are such different parameters to be living life through. To
Absolutely.
feel that I'm using the skills that you've been given, whatever your belief system, you have an individual set of skills and acumen, your own beliefs, your own motivators, and that you can feel comfortable to use those, and you find a tribe that will love you for it and that will appreciate it. And I think that's what I found in the deployed space. When I was back in barracks, oh, I found that really challenging, because it was all about writing quickly on a keyboard and having the perfectly presented document. That's just not me. So that I found very hard, but that wasn't gender based. That was my own acumen with English and reading and
Mm,
writing that
mm,
I know is tough. What I can do is assimilate significant amounts of information rapidly and be able to process it and be able to give a back brief on it, which when you're in an operational theatre, you need to absorb everything that's happening around you, very similar to business. You've got
yeah.
lots and lots of different things happening around you, all of your heads of department, your different members of the team coming in with different feeds. Oh, this is happening in the market. This is what we're reading. Politically, changes might be here. This is where our finances are. And you're juggling all of these different inputs and being expected as a leader, as the CEO, or wherever you are in the food chain of the business, to suddenly be an all-seeing eye. And that's hard. So I guess that's where operationally I thrived, and where I would love people who need to be running a business at tempo for life to feel comfortable with how to navigate that tempo, that you don't let perfection get in the way of progress, all of those different pieces, and to just be themselves. Because the few times I tried to bend myself out of shape thinking that I wasn't being appreciated, because we all go through that, it wasn't working out as I'd wanted it to, I wasn't being appreciated, and then you start trying to be potentially somebody you're not, that just doesn't work. And it takes your energy and it makes you feel very uncomfortable. And then essentially I was very, very lucky, because I was probably able to change roles when that would happen, occasionally, because we move every 2 years anyway. And so you're always having to assimilate into a new team as well. So very similar to when people move careers quite often in normal life. And I just found that I'd arrive at a new place, or I'd speak to somebody else and they'd go, "Oh, but Alice, we love you just the way you are." What a wonderful welcome or discussion to have with a colleague, not because you know them hugely well, just because a colleague can see that you're resting and just go, "Are you okay?" I'm just saying, "I'm just trying to assimilate this. This seems to just not be working out." And to just have that friendly face, just bring you a cup of tea and just go, "I've had a look through your work. I think you're just fine. Just keep going and be who you need to be and be wonderful just how you are." I mean, that was a blessing to receive as a kind of 23, 24-year-old from a couple of very experienced male commanders who could see that I was really wrestling with how to progress.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of gender, it's because at the time I had a very challenging boss, and it happened to be a lady, actually. So I think that's where I was having huge issues with the fact that my first ever female boss was a living nightmare for me, and I didn't know how to make her happy.
Mm,
I didn't know how to achieve for her. I'd had a male boss before and I had a male boss afterwards. And I've worked for both of them multiple times, and they've been happy multiple times. And I had this window of a nightmare and just going, "Oh my Lord, what do I do?" So just to have somebody come and just bring you a cup of tea or tap you on the shoulder and go, "You'll be just fine. This is all going to be part of a learning curve. you'll be just fine was so reassuring. And that piece of just be who you are. And that's the big part I bring into our coaching now is let's help you shine as you are, because then your energy will all be in the positive production, profit making, etc. Because when you have more funds, you have more options. You can do great things. You can bring in great talent. You can be able to support philanthropic work like we all aspire to be able to do. And so it's also helping people realize that you can be cherished for who you are. And let's lean into that rather than trying to hide it.
Alice, so that leads me to the next question. What top tips do you have for other women on how to optimize their performance and feel comfortable in any space, which is really something that you've done?
And which I do love to share. So thank you so much. That's such a great question. So what I often find is that we have an internal narrative. And so the thing I would invite you to look at is just consider 3 points. What is the internal narrative you're having? And does it support you? Are you supporting yourself or are you beating yourself up? Because often we are our own biggest critics, our own worst critics. And therefore be gentle on yourself, because, you know, anybody can beat you up, but you certainly shouldn't start at home. And, you know, so be gentle on yourself to start off with. So be very aware of the narrative, because there are 3 parts: thoughts, what is it? Thoughts, thoughts, toxins, and oh, it's just dropped out of my mind. It'll come back. Anyway, be very careful of your internal narrative. And then the next part is you get what you focused on. And so essentially, if you're focused on positive, then your body naturally, you are dealing with a supercomputer in here. It will do whatever you tell it, and it doesn't understand can't. So can't, for example, means can, but I will not. So it
Yeah.
means I can, but I'm not. And so it will not understand a negative. So it's like saying, don't think of the pink elephant. What's the first thing you now do? You think of a pink elephant. It doesn't understand. All it's heard is think pink elephant. It takes the command language. So every time you're having a thought in your brain, make sure it's positive and that you are using that brain power to go towards something that you want to achieve. It's literally like if you imagine driving, you'll say, oh my goodness, I mustn't hit that bollard. What do you almost do? You inadvertently drive towards the bollard because subconsciously you've looked towards it and so you've started moving. In comparison to, I need to make sure I'm carrying along this road straight, then you look along the road and you look on straight and you ignore the bollard.
Yeah.
So 1 is be careful of the inner narrative. 2 is you get what you focus on, so choose carefully. And if not you, who? So many times I've had it myself. I'm like, oh my goodness, am I appropriate for this? You know, and that effectively is you questioning your own inner belief. But if not you, who? And if you look around the room and there is somebody much better than you, then fair enough. You may not be the best person, but in which case, that's a valid reason to maybe say, well, actually, person A, B, or C might be a really great person because they've got these skills. I have this one. That's very different to looking around the room, knowing you have the skills, knowing you have the acumen, but the little doubt, the self-belief is in there, and you're allowing that to get louder. So my invitation is always, if not you, who? Because somebody has usually asked you to help with something, to apply for something, to go towards something, because they want you. They wouldn't be opening the door for you to have an opportunity to be given given a chance to speak. Thank you so much. But, you know, given a chance to go for an interview, they wouldn't be asking you to do a role if they didn't believe you could do it.
Yeah.
So basically, listen to the inner narrative. Be careful what you focus on so that you know you're focused on where you want to go, not listening to the jungle drums of what other things negative might be popping up. And then, if not you, who? And I bet you when you start to really deeply analyze those in the room around you, you won't find someone better than yourself. You'll find that actually that self-belief can be positively reinforced by going, you know what, they're a great person, but I can do that too. They've got that part, that's brilliant, but I know I can do that too. And The
Thank
number of
you
ladies
so
I've
much.
just seen break through, and it's male and female. All those are universal parts of being
Yeah,
a great leader and being a great person, irrespective of age, background, or gender. And that's what I love, is that it doesn't matter about where you come from, it's about where you want to go.
yeah. Alice, thank you so much for that. What are your goals or, dreams you still hold? What are the next years going to look like?
Oh, my absolute dream, just like, something out of a film, is world peace. I've
Don't we all?
essentially, well, yeah, I mean, I guess I've spent my entire adult life so far in austere and hostile environments. And I know that people fight over resource, power, and often, and ego, but often in the most beautiful parts of the world. So one of the aims for our coaching is to support people to become more comfortable in themselves, because then they don't need to worry about the ego. They can work through comprehensively what resource do they have and how to make best use of it. And also to be able to feel comfortable that actually power is all relative. And so do you have what you need to achieve what you want to achieve, rather than feeling that it has to be a perpetual fight? Because it is possible to create win-win scenarios if you can be pragmatic, be able to negotiate well, work out what do you really need versus what do you want. And that's the part I love, is the geopolitical stage. And that's why we deal with businesses, because I firmly believe that when you've got a strong financial backbone of a nation, then it enables much better decision making, because people feel more comfortable in themselves about what resource do they have for them individually, as businesses, as regions, as nations, and then we become far more calm. So that's my invitation, is anybody who's feeling that they are needing support in making sure their business is going to be a success, that their leadership is going to be a success. That's why we're here, so that you don't have to feel intimidated by the challenge ahead, and that instead you can feel excited by it. And I guess that's for me too. I just look and go, wow, the more the world is in chaos, the more that they need us. And what an opportunity to step in and support those that want to create positive, tangible change.
I think you said that so beautifully, Alice. We're going to finish on this note because it's perfect, especially in the world that we live in right now. Thank you so much for all your wisdom, experience, and inspiration today.
Oh, thank you for having me. And genuinely, I'm on LinkedIn. Just come and find me. And there is never a question too big or too small. And we're here to support. That's the most important thing. And we're here to support each other. That's the other aspect, isn't it?